Now, I just want to finish this section by saying that if all of this is true, what I'm coming out with, how come there aren't any politicians banging their fist on the table in Parliament wanting answers about false flag terrorism, wanting answers about the Jane Burgermeister story? And I'm going to offer some explanations. The first is that I think most politicians are also victims in the same way that most of the public are, that they just believe what's put out by the media, and that probably encompasses the vast majority of politicians. The ones that are informed, that do realise that there's something going on, I think probably most or all of them, they're basically just not brave enough to stand up and speak the truth because they would know it would threaten their career. And I just want to give a little analogy of what I think our Parliament has turned into. Let's just say you've got a cage with 6 monkeys in it. In that cage, there's a big tower inside it, and there's a banana at the top. And one of the monkeys says, right, I'm going to have that banana, and he climbs up the tower. But halfway up, there's this invisible force field that gives him a massive electric shock, and he comes tumbling down. And the next monkey thinks, well, I'm going to have a try at that. He tries, and the same happens. A third monkey tries, and the other 2 monkeys jump on him and say, no, no, you're going to get an electric shock. So these monkeys, they just leave it be. They then take one of the monkeys out of the cage and they put a new monkey in. The new monkey sees the banana and he starts going up to get the banana, and the other monkeys, they all jump on him and say, no, no, don't do that, you'll get hurt, you can't get that banana. So the monkeys in the cage have indoctrinated the new monkey with their doctrine, with their information that they have, that there's a force field there. You then take out another monkey and put a new one in. Same thing happens, that monkey goes for the banana. The rest of them, including the new monkey, he's not quite sure why he's stopping that monkey going to get the banana, but he does it anyway. You replace another monkey, and then you replace them one by one until all 6 monkeys have been replaced. And each new monkey that comes in, they're all jumping on him. Now, you then switch this force field off so they can get the banana, and then you keep sending new monkeys in. And every time they jump on the monkey. So they're acting on false information, and they're all basically indoctrinating each other. The only solution to that system, to allow the monkeys to get the banana, is to replace every single one of those monkeys with a new set of monkeys. And that's what we need to do with our Parliament. That ends the first section. Okay, so part 2, which I've entitled Off Planet. And I'll start with this phrase. All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident. And I think this is the case with a lot of the information that I'm about to present to you. Okay, about a month ago, I think it was, maybe a bit longer, the FBI published a new website, set up a new website called The Vault, and it published a lot of its previous UFO files, some of them from Roswell, and it caused headlines like this in our mainstream media. But these files, they weren't ridiculed like they used to be in the media. It was treated reasonably seriously, and there was a couple of, in particular, memos from Roswell talking about the recovery of a disc at Roswell. But one annoying thing they always do, they always accompany it with this, this fake photograph of the, the Santilli footage, whatever it is. It's been proven to be a fake. So they mix fact and fiction. But having said that, they treated this fairly seriously. It was in the Daily Mail as well. I just want to ask the audience, why does people think they're doing this? Anyone got any thoughts on why they seem to be putting these stories in the media? Like never before. There's more UFO stories in The Sun than ever before, and also the Daily Mail. Does anyone have any thoughts on why we could be seeing this? Sorry? Softening the public up. Okay, Project Bluebeam, which is where they allegedly can create an image of the sky, in the sky, of a fake alien craft and fool us all into think we're being invaded. And anyone think that it's because they're going to reveal the absolute truth about what they know? Disclosure. Anyone think that? What they want us to know? Yeah. I mean, it could be another false flag. Now, in the first part, I spoke about fear and about how prior to 1990 the fear was communism and it has turned into terrorism. Now, it's interesting that Osama bin Laden was, reported to be dead, and I can't help think that the terrorist threat is wearing a bit thin. That people are getting wise to the fact that Al-Qaeda isn't a real organization. Perhaps they're trying to orchestrate a new false threat. Now, I'm not saying that UFOs are not real, because if you were to take the UFO subject as a whole, all of the information that is known about, and there are thousands of books being written about UFOs and the abduction phenomenon, if you were to cherry pick all of the nastier bits of that subject, you could easily create fear with that information. And I'm not saying that's what they're planning. I'm just saying that to bear that in mind if the fear factor starts to be placed on UFOs, because I think that's certainly a possibility. Okay. Now I'm going to talk today in this section about alleged invention of anti-gravity technology, and I'm going to touch on a guy called Dan Sherman, who I believe his testimony sheds light on what's known as the abduction phenomenon, people who claim to have been taken by extraterrestrials. And then I'm going to talk about animal mutilation, because I think the two are possibly linked, and finish on crop circles. Okay, now two people who have spoken about technology which can be used to defeat gravity, i.e. when we travel into space, it's always rocketry. That's how we get the space shuttle into space. We use rockets. But these two guys, two extremely credible whistleblowers in my opinion, have spoken about technology which has been developed in secret, which doesn't need rocketry to get into space. It relies on, well, some call it anti-gravity. The first chap is Edgar Fouché, who worked at Area 51. He has produced paperwork proving he worked at Area 51, and a friend of mine knows Fouché very well, and he vouches for his authenticity. And Fouché disclosed information about a craft, secret craft called the TR-3B. And this is a flying triangle which is allegedly 600 feet in its length. And I'm just going to read a little bit about what Fouché says about it. He says that at the center is a ring where it's like a hollow donut, and it's pressurized to 250,000 atmospheres. And inside there's a supercooled superfluid, so it's superconductive, spins around at 50,000 RPM. This is inside a magnetic field, which, and I'm going to read this here, he says, do not misunderstand, this is not anti-gravity. Anti-gravity provides a repulsive force that can be used for propulsion. The MFD creates a disruption of the Earth's gravitational field upon the mass within the circular accelerator. So he claims that this secret developed craft can reduce its own weight by 89%. Now, if you've got that type of technology, putting something in space is much easier than setting fire to hydrogen and oxygen in a rocket, which is what they still use, which is what they put out on display for the public. And the other man who claims that anti-gravity technology was developed from the mid-1950s onwards through the 1960s until he became involved in anti-gravity projects in Australia. And Standeo spoke in a documentary in 1977 about the program that he was employed in by basically a cabal, an organization which operated above national governments, which was developing anti-gravity technology. I'm going to show a clip of Standeo speaking in 1977. So this is over 30 years ago, this information, and I find Deo an extremely credible witness. He stands by everything that he says in this interview to this very day.
I proceeded to do private research in this electrogravitics, thinking that I had cracked the secret of anti-gravity all by myself, and jumping up and down in my father's labs and mines in Dallas. And one day I was approached by the government and a kind of an emissary from Dr. Edward Teller's office, Dr. James R. Maxfield. And he told me what I'd been doing in my lab, and the details of stuff I haven't even written down or told anybody. He knew, and He had other people like myself sponsored in this kind of research around the country, and that was the first time that I knew that the U.S. government was actively involved, had been, and was still actively involved in the control of gravity with electricity. You find that he was closely affiliated with Dr. Edward Teller, who was the kind of dubbed the father of the hydrogen bomb project in the United States, but he told me that Dr. Teller was the head of anti-gravity research there, had been, I don't know whether he still is. And again, in my ignorance, I didn't realize how much work had already been done and gone before me. I was just kind of on the periphery or the edge of this whole development.
That's a device to be able to make things like flying saucers fly, is it?
Yes. Also, Dr. Tom Keeble in the Aeronautical Research Labs, he told me, yes, we know about the flying saucers your countrymen have built in England and in Canada. And in fact, we have film records of them here in the RAAF files. I said, well,
I want to stop you there.
Yeah.
Are you saying, Stan, that there are such things as, let's call them flying saucers, but they are built on Earth?
Yes. That doesn't mean that I rule out the possibility of other flying devices or intelligent beings visiting the planet either from the oceanic bottoms or deeper areas or from other areas in space. But I am positive that we have the technology, I can even name you the companies and people involved, in making high-speed electric aircraft that do look, strange enough, like a saucer. Also, it's a device to store energy in the form of motion, like of a small star or a big atom. It's called, this is a long word, an MHD plasma, magnetohydrodynamic plasma, like ball lightning, and it contains itself. But it's a way to turn all sorts of electricity into a high-voltage battery.
What sort of proof can one furnish for that?
Oh, good grief. The briefcase I've got down here is full of documented evidence that is not all secret. If you go to the records of the New York Herald Tribune, the newspapers, and look for November 20th, 21st, and 22nd, 1955. There are 3 articles in a series on anti-gravity and the various companies and people involved in the research of the United States, Japan, Europe. The list is like a who's who of nuclear physics. It was written by Ansel E. Talbert, the science and aviation editor for the New York Herald Tribune at that time. You can look there. You can look in the electrical engineering index for that period between 55 and 58.
That's a long time ago.
Yes. 57, about March, the security curtain went down. And there were, at that time, over 100 published universities and organizations, including the Gravity Research Foundation, which is still operational in Gravity Village in the United States. There were over 100 of these things operating to develop gravity, the control of it as a power source and communication and locomotion, etc. But you put yourself in the scientist's position in the mid-50s. What you see is that you've got a technology that, if announced to the public, would cause mass reactions in the economy, in social moods, in cultural reactions that could probably bring about the demise of the whole human civilization. They said, look, if we develop this, completely develop it into a social, technological, integrated model, away from the rest of people in islands or in back rooms, however we do it, keep it quiet even from the politicians. At some point later, after 1956, 57, 58, some point later we'll have it ready to announce to the world as a global system. Then all we've got to do is figure out how to convince them to give it a try. People at the levels that are covering it up, I know some of them personally, and they aren't, in my opinion, villains. They're very sincere humanists. They are trying to solve planet Earth, trying to bring unity their way. An organization, a group of scientists, academics, industrialists, he couldn't be exact. Now, he never put a name to it, but I said, well, do you mean like a club? And he said, yes, but no. We are aware of these problems, and we're trying to solve them in the best way we know how. But these people have all been working together as scientists who go above governments. And look, they're sincere. I can't blame them for doing this. It's just that they have lost control of what they tried to set up. In 57, the blanket went down with security, and there was no more reported news on it to say either that it was a dead-end research avenue, that everybody had stopped working on it, or that it was highly successful and there had been a few breakthroughs. There was just nothing. It went quiet. And if you go back in the period and look, you will see that for a number of years after 57, there was no mention of this sort of research in print. Behind the scenes, there was a lot of discussion, and even MGM Studios made the movie The Forbidden Planet, revealing at that time a lot, as though it were fiction, of the technology and why it had to be covered up. The new model for planet Earth using this technology must be independent of any established government or order. After 7 or 8 years, if you can hold the ruse that long, you explain to them, this is how we brought peace. I still maintain I don't think that it'll work, because at the top these organizations are fighting. The power politics involved in keeping the secrets that we now have across the planet have allowed, well, in my opinion, groups that aren't capable of handling control of the planet to take power.
So that was in 1977, Stan Deyo claiming that anti-gravity technology existed then. And he claims that these discs that they've developed, which can defy gravity, can be used, you put 3 of them together to make a triangle, and then you can put more to make a larger triangle, so they can be used in triangle format to make huge platforms. So you could make an anti-gravity platform the size of an aircraft carrier, which one would assume would just lift off the ground like this with whatever you wanted on top of there. So if this technology exists, it really it makes an absolute mockery of the rocketry technology that we see with the space shuttle and every other vehicle that's been put in space. I suspect that this, what we see on the screen here, is basically a cover project. The International Space Station and the Space Shuttle are technology to pacify the public. This is what our space technology is. When I suspect behind closed doors they've got technology that would just make that look like a maccano set.